Hello and welcome to Anime Initiative, comic books place where we talk all things anime, manga, webtoons, otaku nerd stuff, and more. My name is Megan Peters, and I am the host of this program here with my good friend and coworker, Evan Valentine. How you doing, Evan?
Hey everybody, good. How's everybody?
Oh, we are doing good. We do have to say Nick is on a well-deserved vacation right now. He
Yes.
will be back. Actually, I've been checking up on him on social media, and he found like a gold mine of vintage manga. You know,
Ooh.
somewhere in his neighborhood where he got like a bunch of like old like Bobo like
Oh
manga
man.
and a bunch of stuff. So kudos to him. He must be having a solid vacay because anytime you get those goodies is a great time. But yeah, we are here. This is Anime Initiative. We talk all things anime news, and boy, every week we have a lot of it to go through. If you did not listen to our most recent episode, we made some comments and some predictions about some series like Jujutsu Kaisen and One Piece that very quickly came around and became very relevant to us. So we will be talking about that in this episode as we go through our news rundown. We'll take a little break halfway through the show, and then we're going to kind of do a deep dive as usual. And we're going to be talking about the exploration of anime's live action frontier. We've got an update on Hollywood's live action adaptation that is in development for Naruto. Of course, we got some One Piece stuff to talk about. Even companies like Crunchyroll and Sony are looking to get into the equation now. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But first, we got some big news to talk about. It is the thing I have been literally waiting months for. Yu-Gi-Oh! And Hello Kitty have come together in the mashup nobody saw coming, unless you've been paying attention and you are, a big fan of McDonald's, because Hello Kitty and Yu-Gi-Oh! Have put out their Happy Meal deal here in the United States. I'll say this. I don't really go to McDonald's a lot. It's just not my thing. I have been more to McDonald's in the last like week and a half than I have probably in my entire life combined, trying to get these Happy Meal toys. So if you do not know, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Hello Kitty have come together to create a fully themed limited edition Happy Meal deal, which basically, you might be wondering how Yu-Gi-Oh! And Hello Kitty came together. So do we. We have the exact same question. But that's the power of McDonald's, when you got that kind of money going around. Basically there's like eight or seven different little plushies that you're able to get from these Happy Meal deals here in the United States now. So they have like a little plushie Hello Kitty that's dressed as like the Dark Magician, and My Melody dressed as Dark Magician Girl. We have like Pom Pom Purin as Exodia, which like
Whoa, I was about to
amazing.
ask.
Like, my favorite thing is like Tuxedo Sam is Obelisk the Tormentor,
Oh,
which
that's weird.
I mean, that's my husband knows nothing about Hello Kitty or Sanrio, but growing up, his sister loved Tuxedo Sam. So like that's the only Sanrio character he knows. So he keeps trying to get Obelisk the Tormentor Tuxedo Sam, and man, it is not going well. We are not having any success. Have you gotten one of these Happy Meal deals?
Oh, no, I haven't. I'm just more.
Evan, what are you doing? Okay,
I know.
it's not for everybody.
I'm just more thrilled about like one of the things that we talk about a lot here on Anime Initiative is that we are constantly dying for more things that we see regularly in Japan when it comes to anime collaborations make their way to the United States. So seeing this collab between Sanrio and Yu-Gi-Oh! Come to McDonald's and everything just fills me with hope. I am also waiting on the Sanrio Junji Ito collab to also make its way to Happy Meals in general here in the United States.
That would be terrifying. I feel like they'd have to make one of those like adult Happy Meal kits for that.
Yeah, like the Travis Scott stuff that originally came out.
Like something like that. You want the Travis Scott meal? No, you want the Junji Ito meal, whatever that entails.
whatever horrors.
Whatever that looks like, that's what we want. But yeah, this Hello Kitty deal, obviously, it's for a limited time. It's at participating locations only. So far, I haven't run into a McDonald's in the Nashville area in
Mhm.
Tennessee that does not have. I mean, they all have had it. I've gotten so many duplicates. It's been to the point now where I'm way too non-confrontational to do this, but my husband comes from a theater background. So like I've gotten like 3 different crappie currybos and I've been
Mhm.
like, "Man, I don't want this. I'm trying to get cinnamon roll and as the blue eyes white dragon." So like he'll just take it and go inside to the store and he's super polite to the people and he's like, "Hey, can you get me a different one than this?"
Oh,
And
I was about to
and
ask.
and
Yeah.
the employees are like, "Absolutely." I'm so excited to search through these weird out there. Apparently a lot of people are trying to do it. So,
Mm.
I just want Blue Eyes White Dragon, man. I still haven't been able to find it. I've gotten almost the entire collection otherwise, which is, really embarrassing. But, me and they're so cute.
This
I
is
love
this is this is like the Monopoly game, but for anime fans going into
Truly,
McDonald's.
truly at this point. I mean, it's working. I have not gone to a McDonald's this meal deal happening, and I couldn't even tell you how long. But, as soon as this dropped, because originally this collaboration went live with McDonald's in Asia, and, we wrote about it here at Comic Book, and we were
Mhm.
like, "Oh, yeah, this is never gonna happen here in the United States." But you know what? McDonald's is proving us wrong. They've done Pokemon deals. Wasn't too long that we had Jujutsu Kaisen.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
we've got Yu-Gi-Oh! So honestly, I'm excited for what's next. McDonald's
Like
has clearly tapped into the anime game. So,
the Jujutsu Kaisen collaboration was really interesting because like that wasn't done through Happy Meals in general. That was just like they created a sauce that they were willing to bring over to North America and everything, which I thought was a really neat idea. And once again, it just goes to show that like anime is continuing to skyrocket. Everybody's taking notice. And that's great to see. I think that
hey,
it's
I mean,
cool that
what's the one way that you acknowledge anime's, footprint in pop culture? Give them a chicken nugget sauce. That's what
yeah,
you
there
do.
you go.
That's how you do it. And that's not my rules. It's just how the way the world works. But moving on to our next topic of there's really no great way to segue out of a Happy Meal, but you know what? We're gonna segue out of it because we, in a very rare treat, have gotten a ton of new information about Naruto and Boruto
Mhm.
from creator Masashi Kishimoto himself, the legend. He is not as prevalent he isn't as prevalent on social media as some creators are. You know, you know, Yoshihiro Togashi for Hunter x
Oh yeah.
Hunter, even Ichiro Oda is more prevalent on social media than Masashi Kishimoto. But in the last few days, Kishimoto appeared in person at several fan events in France with Mikio Ikimoto, who is the artist and his co-creator of the Boruto series.
Mhm.
So we've gotten a ton of information on the original Naruto series as well as its sequel, which a bunch of that coverage is available on Comic Book if you'd like to read some juicy details about about why Masashi Kishimoto has some major regrets regarding Sakura Haruno. But the big thing that I want to bring up in this podcast is that during his most recent fan event and interview, basically Kishimoto was talking about some of the things that, are most important to him in his life right now. And obviously, his first thing was family,
Mhm.
friends, and loved ones. But he said the other thing that is most important to him right now is, maybe working on a brand new project.
Mm.
So, of course, that starts the klaxons, the alarm bells, the red woo woo. Everybody wants to know what Kishimoto is doing. You can't publish a story as big as Naruto for like
Mhm.
15 years and not have like this massive fan base clamoring for what's next. But if you've listened to this podcast or you are a manga fan, you will know that Kishimoto has released a series post Naruto that did not go well. Evan, what are we thinking right now?
Uh, yeah, despite Samurai 8's abject failure in the pages of
I
Weekly
would
Shonen.
not say abject, but it did not perform. I would say it did not perform as anticipated.
How many chapters did it get when all
Look,
was said
it
and done?
was almost a full year. That's better than some series. It's
Um,
better than some series. Mama I'm so sorry.
oh man, yeah. What a what a knife to the heart that was. But No, I think that one of the things, and this is something that we've talked a lot about when it comes to manga artists and how they need to relax in general, following some, folks talking about how difficult it is to create manga and like the drawing process and just coming up with the regular schedule on a weekly basis. It seems insane, but I am all for the idea of Masashi Kishimoto coming back and trying out something completely new where he hands off the reins a lot like with Boruto in general and just comes up with the story and has artists kind of work on it and comes up with it that way. I think that that's kind of the best way for some of these folks and some of these bigger manga artists to kind of keep moving forward and not kill themselves in the process of doing this. I think that another thing that I always love to stress when we're talking, here on the Anime Initiative is the fact that Two Blue Vortex is really good right now.
It
And I think
is actually surprisingly good.
it's we're more surprised than anyone, to be honest, because we were covering, here at Comic Book, we were covering Naruto Next Generations a lot, and we were kind of like, oh well, before Kishimoto jumped back on board and was doing all of the writing himself, we were kind of like, well, where is this going? Does it really justify its existence? And now it totally does. There's a lot of interesting concepts that are being thrown out there in terms of Boruto's life and everything. So I think there's still like gas in the tank when it comes to Kishimoto and
Mhm.
ideas in general. So I think that yeah, I would totally be willing to give it a shot. And especially because, you know, as more and more manga series end in Weekly Shonen Jump, there's a power vacuum. We've talked about it a lot here in the here on the podcast before, and being able to see that, like having one of the tried and true creators have something new that could take, alongside Boruto, which is still going strong, that would be now's the time, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. I mean, obviously, we don't have any details on whether there is an active, project in mind for Kishimoto or if he's just kind of thinking about getting back into the reins with a brand new IP. Looking at Samurai 8, the problem is it's Kishimoto. Again, he is one of those, veterans, one of those kind
Hmm.
of legends that you look at in the manga, creation spirit Shonen Jump. But the problem is, when Kishimoto was coming in to publication as a manga artist, back in 97, I believe, when the first, one shot draft of Naruto was released, he was pitching other series that never got picked up. Naruto was that first big series of his that got to go forward and ran
Yeah,
with it. And I mean, what a pillar to try to live up to.
yeah.
I mean, that's your first kind of, ballpark pitch. He released several kind of one-shot pitches, in the midst of Naruto, and then obviously Samurai 8 came out as kind of his next big pitch forward. I felt the pacing of Samurai 8 was very in tandem with what we saw with, Naruto originally.
Hmm.
Naruto, as if you look back at that manga and take off the nostalgia glasses and, all that stuff, it takes a while. It really picks up during the tuning exam arc.
Yeah.
You get a lot of good foundational stuff before then, with the mission and the waves, but it takes a bit. That's exactly what happened with Samurai 8. Problem is the field has changed, the industry has
Yeah.
changed, the expectations for a new series has changed. Shonen Jump is not, even if you are Masashi Kishimoto, is not gonna keep a series around for a year without it, blowing up within its first arc or 2 arcs, like we see with
Hmm.
something like Kagurabachi. The expectations are entirely different, and so I think that that's something that creators, like Kishimoto or anybody that, is coming back, from, a place where they created, 10 years ago and are now coming back and publishing new work or having to kind of deal with. Kishimoto is, as however much you might want to rail on Naruto about certain aspects, as an artist, as a storyteller, as a world builder, he's definitely got what it takes to
Oh yeah.
put out more content. The dude's pretty young, like he can do it. My favorite thing is though in this interview in France, he is speaking with Ikimoto, who publishes Boruto. Boruto's published on a monthly schedule,
Hmm.
and Ikimoto was like, "I don't understand how you publish Naruto on a weekly basis like back in the day." Kishimoto was like, "I think I blacked out. I think I blacked it all out." He's like, "Yeah, the monthly schedule appeals to me much more, which,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I can understand. These manga artists are, in some cases quite literally killing themselves for the
Mhm.
craft. So, if Kishimoto does come back, I hope he takes it easy on his body. Maybe it's a
Yeah.
monthly project. I'm definitely here for it. I'm a huge Naruto fan. Number one Kishimoto stan, so we'll see how that goes. And
Mhm.
speaking of manga returning, we do have an update on Dragon Ball Super. Do you want to know the update, Evan?
Yes, I do. Like, I
The
don't know it
update
already.
the update is that it's still coming back.
Mhm.
So, I think it's fair to say the Dragon Ball fandom has been very keen on finding out when the Dragon Ball Super manga will be returning.
Mhm.
Obviously, for those who might not be aware, might have forgotten, earlier this year, the series creator of Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama, did pretty suddenly pass away. It was very unexpected. Following his passing, a chapter of Dragon Ball Super was released, and after that point, it went on hiatus. So we have now gone several months without an update on the Dragon Ball Super manga. The manga did kind of come off for its hiatus right as it finished its adaptation of the superhero arc that we saw, translated in film. So the question is, what's next? Well, in a recent interview with V Jump, Toyotaro, who is the artist behind Dragon Ball Super and has been, lauded for years as Akira Toriyama's, predecessor or
Mhm.
protege, rather, wrong word, protege. That's the word I'm looking for. um, went forward and basically said that he's really excited to continue drafting and creating new fights for fans and that they can, look forward to that, resuming at some point. Again, we have no confirmation on when Dragon Ball Super as a manga will return. But I think it's interesting that one, we got this update, and two, how does the world deal if we get Dragon Ball Daima releasing in October, which is, pretty much set in stone at this point with Toei Animation? Also, like, can Dragon Ball Super the manga kind of compete in the same space when we have a weekly Dragon Ball back,
Mhm.
even though it's a different Dragon Ball series, quote unquote?
Mhm.
What do you think?
Um, yeah, I mean, I definitely think it can compete, and it will if it has to. I think that we talked about the previous chapter that of Dragon Ball Super's manga that many thought, me included, I kind of thought that that would be the final Dragon Ball Super manga chapter,
Mhm.
and in a lot of ways, when I read it, like I was totally cool with that. If that was going to be the end, I thought it ended amazingly. It gave like that final arc, which took place for a couple of chapters following the superhero adaptation, where we got to see, like, it was just fit to bursting with fan service stuff. We got
Oh,
Ultra
absolutely.
Instinct Goku versus Beast Gohan. We got Beast Gohan versus Broly. We got Ultra Ego Vegeta jumping into the mix and all this other stuff. And we got like what is, I thought, just a very heartwarming final page where Piccolo, Akira Toriyama's favorite character, kind of like waved goodbye.
Mhm.
And that worked for me as a finale, if that was going to be the finale.
Mhm.
Um, and I know that we've never quite, and we have reported on it a lot in terms of how much like how much Toriyama and Toyotaro kind of did when it came to Dragon Ball Super's manga. They kind of
Yeah.
worked in tandem. Like with stuff like the Granola the Survivor arc, I know that Toriyama came up with the idea of the Heaters, who were the kind of sort of big bad of that.
Kinda gangsters that
The
showed up.
Yeah, the gangsters who showed up.
Very annoying characters, but,
They were so Toriyama came up with that. But Toyotaro, he does really like, if there has to be a successor and you have to hand off the reins to someone else, you couldn't find someone better. And I know that there's always going to be debates in terms of like, can he live up to Toriyama? That's always going to be something. But I think that
Mhm.
his love of the franchise, you're not going to find somebody who loves Dragon Ball more than this guy. And you could see that
Right.
in everything that he does. There is still like the main thread that needs to be addressed is Black Frieza. That's still the major thing
The
that
big pro That is a big plot thread just dangling.
that's still a major plot thread that's still dangling. So they will, I'm sure that he will address that. And if Dragon Ball Super has to continue, I think that handing it off to him is the best way to do it. And we'll kind of see how he moves forward with it and everything. I'm excited to see what he does in
Mhm.
the future because I think,
I think it's really interesting when we talk about kind of legacies and proteges within the manga sphere because we just talked about Naruto and that we
Mhm,
have Kishimoto, but he has his kind of protege with Mikio Ikimoto, who's
mhm,
in many ways doing the art, creating story, edits, revisions, pitches for Kishimoto to kind of approve of with Naruto and that kind of legacy that he's holding in his hands. This is something that Toriyama was doing for years
mhm,
before his passing earlier this year, with Toyotaro. Toyotaro, who has his origins with like doing fan comics for
yeah,
Dragon
yeah,
Ball. He has been deep in this fandom for a long time, and was kind of hand selected as he worked his way through his art career to become this kind of inheritor of what Toriyama created with Dragon Ball. I mean, of course, it goes without saying, nobody could have expected Toyotaro to become this like primary inheritor so quickly
mhm,
after Toriyama's passing. And we've talked on this podcast before. There are other people and other factions tied to Dragon Ball that do have a say in how it's going to go forward. You have people like Shueisha. You have the studio that Toriyama was, founded. He has his family members. He has, the Capsule Corporation that he was doing
mhm,
some work with in Japan in terms of IP management. There's Toei Animation, that is, and the principal overseer of the anime IP. There's a lot of fingers in the pie when it comes to
mhm,
Dragon Ball and in really any franchise that's this size. And a lot of that I'm sure is why we have seen such a delay in the Dragon Ball Super manga, making a return. I think there's definitely plenty of really great content that could be further explored. I mean, obviously we've talked about Black Frieza, but there's even more threads that have been dangled, about Goku and Vegeta's next phases of kind of power and transformation. Those are all things that are kind of TBD until we get a more firm answer on when will the manga return. But at least with this latest interview, Toyotaro gave a very, I would say, diplomatic update
mhm.
in saying that he will be coming back. The question is when. So I know that's not an amazing update. At least Dragon Ball fans can take, heart in knowing that Dragon Ball Daima is going to be moving forward in October. That's the next kind of canon anime that's coming forward. So we can all look forward to seeing what that show has to offer.
Mhm.
And before this episode began, I totally forgot to put this on the rundown, but Evan and I were on the same like brain cell wavelength because the first Slam Dunk is now on Netflix if you're in the United States. And I'll say this: I've watched like Kuroko's Basketball. I surprisingly like sports anime. I really love The Prince of Tennis growing up.
Mhm.
I like really obscure ones like Chihaya Furu. The first Slam Dunk slaps.
Oh,
It's
so
so
good.
good, and I know the hype about it was very real, and Nick wrote a lot about this series, which
Mhm.
unfortunately he's not here this week, so I will talk about this with him when he returns from his well-deserved vacation. But it's so good. The animation style is
Oh.
unreal. Evan, what do you think?
Yeah, it's an as someone who has never saw Slam Dunk. My favorite sports anime has been Hajime no Ippo, the
Oh,
boxing
yes,
one. I
of
love I
course.
love that one. Um, and I had not seen. I just had so many people that were recommending this to me that were just like, this movie is amazing. It's unlike anything that you've ever seen. It focuses entirely on one basketball game while like kind of interspersed with some flashbacks of characters and stuff. But
Yes,
as Megan had said, like this looks unlike anything. I've never seen animation that looks this smooth. Toei Animation is responsible for this one, and they kind of blended a combination of CG artwork with 2D animation style, and it makes it look smoother than anything I've seen before. Like I think that I watched this and I'm gonna watch the original Slam Dunk, I
oh,
think,
yeah,
because it introduced me to this world. It's a good primer in that way, but it also is like a complete story in and of itself. And it's so simplistic and basic. It's just a basketball game, but it
right.
works so well in that. Like You know, so yeah, highly cannot recommend enough. One of my favorite anime movies I've ever seen. Easy,
Yeah, it
easy.
is it is incredibly good. It is a great jumping point. Like, if you've never
Mhm.
seen Slam Dunk before and you're scared because 'cause you're like, "Man, anime, basketball, I have no idea what these guys are doing in this game," is incredibly accessible. I 100% approve and love it. It gave me intense Haikyuu vibes because,
Yeah.
like, you look at something like earlier this year, Haikyuu brought its movie, The Dumpster Battle, to theaters, which really focuses on Karasuno versus Nekomata, their
Mhm.
kind of rivalry team. And that's just really one match that we're focusing on, but we get great flashbacks with certain characters and their backstory. I loved it. So if you are needing a new anime movie to dive into, Slam Dunk, definitely a 10 out of 10
Mhm.
recommendation. So, speaking of anime streaming, this is not a topic that we often touch upon in this podcast. We do have a Pokemon podcast here at Comic Book, but this is too big of a deal for us to not talk about here on the
Yeah.
anime podcast because finally, Pokemon the anime that has been going on for 1,000 plus episodes has locked in a really solid streaming deal here for the United States. If you did not know, it's been almost 2 years, I think, since the Pokemon TV app for mobile shut down.
Mhm.
So that was where a lot of the old school classic Pokemon anime and films were held, and you could watch it there. And suddenly that app went away, and people were like, oh, okay, obviously the anime is going to go elsewhere so we can watch it. False and equivocal. You have to go to like 7 different streaming services to watch Pokemon, which is crazy to me. Um, but thankfully, that is going to be changing soon because Pokemon has landed a big, big new streaming deal with the team at Wild Brain, which is a kind of entertainment conglomerate that focuses on children and family television. Wild Brain has locked in a deal that it will be able to distribute 22 of those earlier seasons of Pokemon through free ad-supported television. It will be the distributor of those seasons in the United States, as well as Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and I believe the United Kingdom as well. So these seasons are finally going to be able to be streamed essentially. At
Mhm.
this point, we don't know when that streaming channel or service is going to be locked in. Wild Brain has said that they will be moving, forward with those announcements, shortly of where fans exactly will be able to watch that, whether it'll be a proprietary service or something that's appearing like as a co-license on Freevee or Tubi. But 22 seasons of Pokemon are going to be in one place to watch, free, ad supported. That's insane. It's also
Yeah.
insane it's taken us this long to get to this point. I mean, good lord. I mean, Pokemon is it's been around like 20 plus years. It has been around the block and we are only just getting to this point where we're able to not even stream the show fully, but at least a lot of it
Yeah.
in one place. That's especially given the landscape of anime streaming and how many services there are and how much licensing is done these days. It's
Mhm.
insane to me that Pokemon has fallen so far behind.
It's I mean, how can you argue the popularity of I mean, it's just like
It's
Pokemon is
mind-boggling.
it's so big, and the fact that like I know that not you don't necessarily need to watch every single season to know like what Ash is up. It works in a sense of Ash's story works in a sense where each season can arguably be seen on its own, kind of, sort of, because I mean obviously there are returning characters that come about that make returns back in journeys and everything like that, so
Mhm.
not having this all in one place, I would, I'm not as big of a Pokemon guy myself, but I would
Mhm.
imagine like Pokemon fans, I feel for you as someone who wouldn't mind, like I would love to get into Case Closed, for example, the Detective Conan
Yeah.
stuff, and
Mhm.
that's like impossible to do in North America because it's just it's spread out all over the place, and there's a bunch of episodes, we're talking like hundreds of episodes of the 1,000 plus that they've released, that you just can't watch anywhere, so
Yeah,
like
they're just missing.
they're
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 just
just gone,
gone.
and that is a benefit of anime becoming more popular in general, but like Pokemon has been the anime for Pokemon has been its own thing, kind of like in terms of
I
getting
mean,
the
it
popularity it
rose the
needed.
ranks with the video games back in I
Yeah.
mean, it was released almost in tandem with,
Hmm.
you know, red, blue/green if you were in Japan, yellow. Those the anime has been around, and
Yeah.
it for so many people was their access point to what anime is. I mean, there are a
Hmm.
lot of, millennials, even older or even younger generations that, in the same way that like, when I talk to, some older anime fans, they'll say that their first introduction to what anime was like Astro Boy, and they didn't realize that that was anime at the time, or like Speed
Hmm.
Racer or something. It's the same thing with Pokemon. A lot of these people are like, yeah, that was introduced to me. I didn't even know what anime was. I didn't realize. And then I watched Pokemon, and now it's led to this kind of, fandom journey for them. To me, it's and we've talked a lot about this on Comic Books Pokemon podcast, which I'm one of the hosts of. It is boggling to me that it is still so problematic trying to navigate the licensing situation between Pokemon
Hmm.
and it on one single service. Right now the current license holder for the Pokemon anime is Netflix. So that's where you can find Journeys and Horizons and some of the more recent Pokemon anime series. But beyond that, it's just blank. It's just blank. You can find some on Prime, you can find some on Tubi, you can find some on, Hulu. It's all different, and it's incredibly difficult to navigate. So I'm very excited that Wild Brain has been able to lock in a deal that covers like the first 22 seasons, because that will get fans a long way into Pokemon. It won't get them the entire way through, but it goes a long way. So
Hmm.
thank you, please, for hearing my Pokemon please.
Thank
Like
you, Pokegods.
I
Thank you.
still love Pokemon, and sometimes, like, I just I like to just have anime playing and, like, or
Mhm.
shows playing in the background when I'm working, and, like, Pokemon's one of those shows that would be great to just have as just,
Yeah.
like, mindless chattering in the background, but no, I can't have it, but soon I will. Now, before we end this discussion, we promised that we would touch upon a topic that we brought up in the last episode of Anime
Time to
Initiative
eat crow.
for Jujutsu Kaisen. Nick is not here, unfortunately, but we do have a message to pass on from him. Spoiler alert, just big,
Spoilers.
big, 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 big spoiler alert for Jujutsu Kaisen. You are not caught up with the manga, just like plug your ears for a couple minutes and come back, or just like skip a couple minutes in this episode, because obviously we know the manga's ending. Things are ramping up. The latest chapter, chapter 267 of Jujutsu Kaisen, was released a few days ago, and it confirmed my queen, my sole reason for living at this point. Nobara Kugisaki is alive. I
She
never doubted
lives.
her. I I was almost ready to doubt. I was there.
Oh man.
Nick never stopped believing. Nick has been number one Nobara believer since day one. But Nobara Kugisaki is alive. She is alive, and she is not only is she alive, she is back in the battlefield with a sick eye patch covering half
Mhm.
of her face from where, Mahito kind
It
of
exploded.
exploded her soul, transfigured her soul and exploded half of her face. She's back, and she is able to use resonance just as so many fans predicted would happen. And thanks to some clever maneuvering by Gojo and Yuta and Utahime and Yuji, they have a finger. The last finger from
Mhm.
Sukuna is been located. It's being held secure, and Nobara is just quite literally nailing that finger to the ground with resonance right now.
I I am going to say I was team she's dead for sure. There's only 5 chapters left. There's no way that Akutami is bringing her back. And lo and behold, when because obviously so we're on social media a lot if our jobs require us to see that. So sometimes we see leaks that are just like they just cut. There's no way we can avoid it.
You
In
could
this
blacklist every word tangentially related to Jujutsu Kaisen, and I don't think that
even
leak
that
would have
couldn't.
avoided
This
it.
is one of those things where when that image of her with the eye patch on, when that showed up, I just immediately I pinged Megan and was like, it she's back. There's no.
She's back.
She's back. There's no. I can't believe it. I warned Nick because Nick tries to avoid spoilers a lot.
Yeah. Nick is
Sometimes
really good at avoiding spoilers, despite the career he has selected to work
he was
in.
not able to avoid this.
And even he got spoiled, unfortunately.
Even he got spoiled on it. And like, it's, I will eat crow on this because I thought for sure there's no way with 5 chapters left she was going to come back. But lo and behold, she totally did. So I'm not taking anything for granted. I'm not going to believe that. I think anybody could come back at this point.
Anybody could come back to life at this point. It's a joke with Dragon Ball, like everyone will die, but they'll come back alive. In Jujutsu Kaisen, like there's still some characters that I'm fairly confident are dead and 6 feet under. But with this like last minute Nobara confirmation, I trust nobody and nothing. So that is our update on that conversation. It was very timely. Thank you. Thank you, Gege Akutami, for proving Evan wrong. and proving Nick right, because Nick has been steadfast with Nobara this entire time. So that is our short news rundown for this episode. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking about anime's live action frontier because it is expanding at a exponential rate, and we've got a lot to talk about. So stay tuned. To Anime Initiative, the place where we talk all things anime, manga, webtoons, and otaku galore. We are here to talk about our main topic for today's episode, which, as we've said, is about live action anime. It is a topic that just will not die. It will not go away. And you know what? To be honest, I don't really want it to. I think there is an amazing amount of potential in this kind of industry that has yet to be tapped. And it seems like Hollywood executives agree with me. So I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, to be honest with you, but it seems we're in agreement. We've gotten a bunch of live action anime updates in the past week, from Naruto to One Piece to, even potential projects coming forward with Crunchyroll of all places. So let's start breaking them down little by little. The first thing is Naruto. We've talked a lot about Naruto in this episode already. If you did not realize, there is a live action adaptation in development for Naruto. It's been kind of bounced around. It's one of those things that's been kind of caught in like developmental purgatory for a while. It's been bounced around different places, but Lionsgate is developing a live action adaptation of Naruto that has the director Destin Daniel Cretton. It's one of the two. I'm terribly sorry, Destin, that I don't know how to say your last name. But he's responsible for bringing Shang-Chi to life from Marvel's cinematic universe. So he knows how to do action. He knows how to do kind of fast-paced, big lore storytelling. And we got an update from Tasha Huao, who is the original kind of screenwriter who was brought in to work on the Naruto script that now Destin has taken into his hands and is revising, because officially Tasha has confirmed that the script for Naruto is done. She sent it in. It is now being looked at. It's being reworked by Destin to kind of fine tune parts of his vision. But in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, Tasha was able to speak a little bit about her experience with Naruto, and says that she feels that Destin's vision for this movie is quote unquote very personal and relatable. And then later in this interview, she says that she thinks that Destin is the perfect choice to be able to give a quote nuanced and special Naruto without getting distracted by how big its world is. So, with that quote in mind, it's so hard for me to think about Naruto being done in live action.
Yeah.
I mean, to be clear, we have had, stage performances of Naruto that have, been very popular and successful in Japan, but we've not seen something like a big live action, full scale VFX, the whole 9 yards production of the series that Kishimoto created. It goes without saying, it is a incredibly dense piece of work to go through.
Yes.
And, a lot of people thought that Naruto was kind of dead on the vine in Hollywood until Lionsgate confirmed that Destin had been brought in. And not only has that director been brought in and approved by Lionsgate, Masashi Kishimoto was the one that gave his final seal of approval to bring Destin into the project. In a previous statement, Kishimoto released about him being brought in, Kishimoto said, quote, "When I heard of Destin's attachment, it happened to be right after watching a blockbuster action film of his, and I thought he would be the perfect director for Naruto. After enjoying his other films and understanding that his forte is in creating solid dramas about people, I became convinced that there is no other director for Naruto." End quote. The pair have actually met. So it seems like Destin is really digging both heels into Naruto at this point, especially now that the script with Tasha is done. So, Evan, I want to know what you think, because it's still such a decisive kind of thing to talk about, even in the wake of the success Netflix has had with its One Piece adaptation.
Yeah, it's number one, like if you're gonna get a US director to do this and you're going to bring it to North America, you can't go wrong, like other than with Destin is the number one choice. Because aside from doing Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings, he also there's a movie that folks should check out. It's called Short Term 12. And he also helped do that one, which is a story about troubled teenagers. And that sounds kind of familiar in terms of
I don't know if you've ever met Sasuke or Naruto, but
I don't know.
I think I would call them troubled.
This Sasuke guy, I think.
Sasuke guy.
This Sasuke guy, I think he kind of fits that bill a little bit. But
something about his hair. Something about his hair just makes me uncomfortable,
I remember, like, we talked about it last week when, especially in Megan, you mentioned it, the word nuanced. That was one of the things that had us all, me, you, and Nick, kind of go, okay, let's dig into that a little bit. Because I think that one of the things as like both anime and comic book fans, one of the things that sets up red flags for us is whenever we hear the word grounded, when it comes to, especially because it's just like doing Naruto and trying to do grounded, just those things do not go.
They can't. I'm sorry.
They can't. You can't do it. You can't. It's impossible. You have to. He has to wear a bright orange suit, and he has to like prospectively be riding on top of a giant frog. Maybe, sort of. Maybe not in the first movie.
He has to somehow whip out sexy no jutsu because that's kind of his. That's really
that
all he's got when he's young.
Yeah, that kind of has to go in there too, right?
Right.
And so I think that one of the things, like following the success, and you mentioned it, Megan, in passing, was kind of the success of Netflix's One Piece. I don't think that Kishimoto is going to be involved on the same level as Oda is in terms of Netflix. I feel
like Kishimoto is definitely a more hands-off kind
he's more like, yeah, go ahead with it, and kind of hands off with it. So like, I don't think that, especially if this movie were to be like a 2-hour live action thing, like you can't do the entirety of the Chunin exams. Well, maybe you can if you focus kind of on the Chunin exams and kind of go from there. But there's a lot of stuff that you just won't be able to fit into a 2 hour. So like when they say nuanced and personal, I think that Destin will take a lot of the elements that kind of work from Naruto and slam them together. Will that include a fight between Rock Lee and Gaara? I don't know. And how do you kind of put together all of those elements? I think that was kind of one of the things that I took away from it, was the idea of like, okay, how much can we fit into this while hinting at the larger world outside? And I know that we kind of, in our outline of this episode, we did kind of touch upon Dragon Ball Evolution and like the way that kind of works and how it doesn't. I think like Dragon Ball Evolution kind of, for all of its faults, of which there are many, for all of its faults, it does kind of create like a personal story of Son Goku, or as he's referred to in the movie,
I'm so
Giku.
sorry. I can't take you seriously because you're kind of praising Dragon Ball
I know,
Evolution,
I'm
and
not
it's
trying.
like
I'm really
it's
not trying
kind of
to.
like twisting my brain.
It's I'm really not trying to, but I can understand the approach, right? Like the approach of trying to condense Dragon Ball's story into something. It doesn't
Right.
do it well, but it does attempt to do it. And I think like you kind of take a similar approach. I really don't want to praise evolution, but
You
I
make that
really
clear
don't want
in this podcast.
I really don't want this to come across as praising
I'll
evolution,
get
because
so many
evolution is hot
DMs on social
garbage.
media.
Evan Valentine praises Dragon Ball Evolution. No, it's there's a way for them to kind of fit Naruto into a 2-hour long thing that could be nuanced, that does focus more on Naruto's story, where he
Mhm.
is like, he's ostracized from Konoha. He is dealing with a lot of his own problems, and maybe we don't necessarily focus on Orochimaru as much. We focus on that first mission, and we kind of go from there, and we see how it goes. And maybe that opens the door to more sequels and creating a franchise and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I took that nuanced approach. I am not praising Dragon Ball Evolution.
Ooh,
I will
that
say
is
that.
if you take anything away from the second half of this podcast episode, it is that Evan is not
I am
praising
not
this
praising Dragon
movie.
Ball Evolution.
Well, I mean, it is interesting because we've talked about, obviously Naruto is still in that moment of development, and it is being developed specifically as a film, which is
Mhm,
obviously another big kind of shift from what we've seen with Netflix's One Piece. The One Piece series, it gets 8 episodes. They're like an hour
mhm.
long each. It gets a lot more time to breathe and tell this story, which I don't know why Naruto is not taking that opportunity, but that's neither here nor there. This past week we've gotten some major One Piece updates in terms of casting for season 2. We know who our Vivi is going to be.
Mhm.
Charithra Chandra is going to be playing Vivi, and I believe they're from one of the seasons of Bridgerton, so they have that kind
Yeah.
of Netflix connection. Katie Seagal is going to be Kureha, which what
Hey.
amazing casting, truly. Sindhil Ramamurthy is going to be playing King Cobra, and Mark Harlick is going to be playing Dr. Hiraluk. So we have some really excellent casting, situated for season 2, which we know is going to get to the Drum Island arc.
Mhm.
We've also gotten some rumors that they've gotten at least one stunt actor locked in to help bring one of the transformations of Chopper to life. We've also
Mm.
got a rumor that of all people, Bartholomew has been cast, because I know obviously he plays a major role in Dressrosa, but he does appear in Logtown. That kind of
Mhm.
kickstarts his whole shtick. So it seems like One Piece is definitely moving forward and found a really great way to drum up excitement, get some really solid casting picks in. I mean, Katie Seagal as Kureha is uh, chef's kiss,
We
truly.
were we were all One Piece fans. We're pretty disappointed, I would say, with the idea that like Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't going to be able to do it because she was filming Freakier Friday at the same time, and there were scheduling issues. Katie Seagal, for those who don't know, Leela from Futurama, Peggy Bundy from Married with Children. She had an amazing role in Sons of Anarchy. She's got the chops to do this. I think
Oh,
that like
absolutely.
she's an amazing pick. And like for real, like all of the casting announcements have been really solid in terms of where and they're all also has, I won't say who has been, the rumors of who has been cast potentially as Crocodile. We'll see as to who that is, but also like we're still waiting to see who will play Tony Chopper,
You're still
his
waiting on Nico Robin, my
oh yeah, and
lovely,
Nico
lovely
Robin,
librarian.
Miss Sunday.
Yeah, Miss Sunday.
That's still lots of casting announcements in general, even though we don't know if season 2 how much is going to touch upon the Alabasta arc. We talked about it previously.
Mhm.
We'll see, but yeah, I'm excited to see kind of what they do. All these casting announcements have really taken the ball and run with it in terms of Netflix knows this might be their next big, franchise and everything, that they're going to take the ball following Stranger Things, ending and all
Right,
that.
yeah. They too have a vacuum kinda coming up, and,
Hmm.
Netflix is willing to invest when it's required. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about Naruto, we've talked about One Piece. One Piece has really proven itself, but that one success I don't feel like has, you know you know, calmed the fandom as a whole.
Mhm.
As soon as updates about other live action projects come up, people are immediately suspicious. We've seen that with this latest Naruto update, though I remain an eternal optimist. But I mean, it's really something that bears repeating, that live action anime, and the same way that we've seen kind of with live action comic books, it is becoming a natural next progression of where entertainment is moving.
Hmm.
As Gen Z and Gen Alpha, when you look at anime, that's the fastest growing form medium of entertainment with those audiences.
Yeah.
Companies, looking at optics, are going to go towards those generations, because those are the generations that are the most coveted in terms of viewership and audience-ship. Looking recently in an interview that Crunchyroll CEO Rahul Parini did with Nikkei, or Nikki in
Hmm.
Japan. He even brought up the topic of Crunchyroll and Sony Entertainment Pictures being involved with live action anime. He said, quote, "We also believe that we can take advantage of being part of Sony Pictures Entertainment. We are discussing the possibility of making live action versions of some anime IP with our Japanese partners and parent company. We're considering producing them not just for Crunchyroll, but for other platforms that are interested in them, to increase interest in anime." End quote.
Hmm.
So it looks like, I mean, obviously Sony is tied with Japan, is tied with Crunchyroll. It's got an excellent footprint situated that it could produce this kind of work. And we've seen Crunchyroll do plenty of original works before in
Hmm.
the animation realm. I'd be incredibly curious to see what they could do, with some projects that are in the live action space. I mean, initially, the things that I would want to see from something like Crunchyroll would be maybe smaller projects, smaller scale in terms of, the world building. Like, I
Hmm.
I don't need to see them do live action Jujutsu Kaisen. I'm okay without that. But, like, I would
It's a
love
little
to
up there.
see Crunchyroll and Sony team together and do something like a live action Kaguya-sama Love is
Sure.
War, or even like a live action Spy Family or something.
Hmm.
There's been interest in that kind of adaptation. The scale and the stakes are smaller, and I think that there is a place that could be the next move where this industry is moving forward. We've already made incredible, and want to stress, incredible movement from Dragon Ball Evolution. Ugh,
Yes.
with
Yes.
to things like Netflix's Death Note, to then
Hmm.
even pretty public successes like Alita Battle Angel, and now One Piece. There are other projects now that are coming to life, looking at Naruto, looking at My Hero Academia, looking at these big scale, big hit kind of projects. And for me, maybe because I just really love slice of life and shojo stuff, like, I
Yeah.
would love to see, like, some small, like, I think now, it completely depends on who is behind this project, and I'm saying it now, do not let anybody involved with Euphoria into this project. And I gotta get that out. I think HBO could do an amazing adaptation of Nana. Like, I
Mhm.
would
Yeah.
love to see that. So I think there are a lot of projects that have a wealth of IP, history and support behind them, that Hollywood can delve into, that don't have to be massive, massive shonen overhauls.
Yeah, and I mean, it's you don't have to have. I think it comes down to a lot of it is like you don't have to have a giant budget for every anime adaptation. For something like One Piece, yeah, you kind of do. There's so
Yeah,
much going on in a world
it's
like that.
One Piece. Yeah.
Yeah, and but like for something, and I was waiting to comment on it. Tony Reyes in the comments said, "Still waiting for the live action Gundam movie." Me too, brother. I
Yeah.
can't wait. I mean, because like, yeah, I know it's been announced by Netflix, and they've taken their time in terms of we haven't seen anything in terms of a release date trailer, none of that stuff. But Gundam is one of those things that would work. It's like, yeah, there's mech fights and everything, but it doesn't necessarily need a giant budget in order to do because it is a lot
And it
of
worked
there's
on the budget that Pacific Rim worked on back in the
yeah,
day.
yeah, for sure.
Easy.
There's a lot of drama in terms of the Principality of Xeon against the Earth Federation and those early things, the Amuro and Char fights and all of that. But
Mhm.
there are a lot of things. I mean, like especially like I will point to like Creed 3. Creed 3 is effectively
It is
a
one of the best anime movies of all time.
it's Hajime no Ippo, the
Yeah,
live action,
it is.
I mean, essentially, like, Michael B. Jordan took the ball and ran with it in terms of adding in anime elements into that movie, and
Yeah.
that's kind of how you can move forward with a lot of this stuff,
And you know what?
there are
Creed 3 was incredibly successful at the box
it
office.
yeah, it was incredibly successful, and it took a lot of anime elements and kind of infused them into a Hollywood style that you could take. I will say
Yeah,
until the day I die, I think for me, still the Kenshin live action movies are my favorite examples of how you can
mhm,
do that in terms
absolutely.
of yeah, they work so well. And Warner Brothers Japan is still doing a lot of stuff. Like I am amazed that there's going to be a live action Cells at Work movie. I don't know how that works exactly, but like they have done stuff like Tokyo Revengers is an amazing
I mean, they've
example
done
of
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
yeah, JoJo's yeah, the Takashi Miike did Diamond is Unbreakable. I don't know if they should keep doing that based
Look,
on that one.
I'm not gonna say no to him.
I did write. I actually like recently. I had to write up an article about 20th Century Boys, which I was shocked to see had live action movies attached to it because
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't know. I
Mhm.
love that series, and I didn't know until recently that it did.
Yeah,
But
Japan has a very rich history with,
mhm,
studios and companies, they're creating live action anime adaptations. And they do a lot of the smaller scale
mhm,
rom-com slice of life. I mean, they've done live action Chihaya. They've
yeah,
done live action, Blue Spring Ride. They do a bunch of those kind of projects, which are incredibly attainable, with a smaller budget, a smaller scale production, but they still have that inherent IP behind them.
yeah,
So, I mean, one day, could we build up to something where, Sony does something like live action Sailor Moon? I will sob the entire time I'm in theaters. I will be there day one. I do not care what you say to me otherwise. But I feel like I would love to see some kind of lower stake things, kind of like what we're
mhm,
seeing, Fangoria's, collaboration with Junji
yes,
Ito. It's doing more groundwork adaptations of Junji Ito projects
mhm,
that aren't going to have inflated budgets and inflated visual effects. Not everything needs that. Not everything is
yeah,
going to have to be an adaptation of, for instance, Attack on Titan. So I think that as we are moving through this new frontier of live action anime, the thing that we're going to have to start seeing is a little bit more, to bring this word back, nuanced approach in the scale of which we're adapting things. I don't think we need to every time adapt a massive budget hit.
yeah,
Sometimes we can just adapt something like, Blue Spring Ride, or, what
mhm,
I said, Love is War, or, these smaller series that are chef's kiss perfection.
mhm,
I would love to see that so very much. So that's my kind of position on it. I am all for, bringing this in. There's just something about seeing one of your favorite IPs adapted into live action that it feels different, and it's a new visionary take on something that you love. And,
yeah.
sometimes it's sour and it hurts as bad as Dragon Ball Evolution, but sometimes it's great, and it offers a new perspective like we see with Netflix's One Piece. So I will never be a hater against this kind of movement that we're seeing,
Mhm.
as anime is continuing to grow with Gen Z and Gen Alpha. It's creeping further into the reach of millennials. The people who grew up on anime back when we were trading VHS tapes and
Yep.
trying to get into AOL chat rooms to talk about Trigun, stuff like that. We're adults now. We have that money and we have that interest. And so it seems like that's being taken into notice, and we're getting slowly but surely successes with it, just like the comic book industry went through in its own stumbles back in the day until, Marvel Studios kind of cracked it with Iron Man in 2008. We're making that progress. So I'm excited to see what's next. But maybe that's
Yeah,
just
no, for sure. And I mean, it just comes down to every project is going to be different in terms of how they're able to be, kind of put together. And you kind of have to look at it through that sphere. It's just like, as you said, it's just like comic book movies. It depends on the passion that the creators have, the way that they're kind of approaching it in general. And you kind of have to keep an open mind when it comes to a lot of that stuff. That being said, nobody touched Berserk. Nobody tried to do nobody do a live action Berserk. It can't be done.
You just teach yourself. The last episode, you said that Nobara Kunisaki was dead forever. And then in the next episode, we're going to have to say X Studio announces live action adaptation of Berserk.
Oh, man. Yep. Yeah, it's going to happen. But
well, that is our conversation for today. I know there's a bunch more to discuss when it comes to the future of what live action anime looks like. So if you want to continue this conversation, you can hit me up on social media at Megan Peters CB. Evan, where can they find you?
You can find me on all the socials at EV Comedy, and I would be remiss if I didn't say you can find Nick at Valdezology on all the socials, and Pop Culture with Anna Rumer. What's the name of
Social
it?
Call.
Social Call with
you
Anna
want to see
Rumer.
him talk about Big Brother. Nick turns into a different person when he talks about Big Brother. If you want to also listen to more things about Pokemon, I am also one of the hosts at A Wild Podcast Has Appeared, which is Comic Book's official Pokemon podcast. There are also plenty of other podcasts here to listen to at Comic Book, from Comic Book Nation, Phase Zero, Quick Save. There are so many. We're about to be starting a couple more, after show programs. So stay tuned to us for our podcast there. And of course, we have all of the anime coverage on Comic Book that you want to read and take in. They make for great trivia pieces at your next party. Trust me, it's impressive. So thank you for joining the Anime Initiative. And until next week, we'll see y'all later.